They let us get two, so don't let us get another one.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you next. Now that you found your way, is there any stopping you?
Only thing that can stop us is us. We just got to come out and play our game, have fun, and let God do the rest.
I'm just glad we gave them something to cheer about today. You know, we got the best fans in the league, and, you know, up until today, this series, we haven't gave them much to cheer for at home. So I was glad that, you know, our performance matched the energy that they were giving us, and obviously it raised our level. And, you know, they're a big part of what we do, especially at home. You know, we feed off that a lot.
We heard some Celtics in 7 chants as well. What was the energy like in the building?
The energy was tremendous. We had to do our job to make sure we get it back here. That's #1 goal. Take care of the next game, one game at a time. We can't look too far ahead. Ouch. And make sure that we got. Good job, Grant. We got to make sure we take this one game at a time and make sure that we just make sure we stay together, honestly.
We just got to play better, start the games off better on the starters, make it more difficult for them. They're in a rhythm since the beginning of the game, but we're always going to stay positive, knowing that we can and we will win this series, and we'll just have to close it out at home.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Ladies First Fridays. I love this new edition of Women's Wednesdays on Fridays. I'm here with the amazing Kelsey Nicole Nelson. What's up, girl? How are you today?
Happy Friday. I am great. Glad to be part of this new First Lady of Fridays, our Ladies First Friday. And there's so much to talk about. So I feel like they're keeping us busy, making us work for the money, Zena.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. There were a lot of exciting games going on last night, both in the NBA and the WNBA. We'll get to the WNBA, but let's kick it off. Last night's game, the Celtics, you think that 3-0 would absolutely kill morale. You would think that 3-0 would make people go, I'm going home, I'm over this. Where's the next flight to Cancun? But Boston has rallied together and shown up and shown out. I absolutely have adored the way that they came back. I was one of the people that didn't think they could do it. I'm not even gonna lie. I thought that Miami would be more poised and be able to come back from the deficit last night, but the 3-pointers were out of this world. They played the way they were supposed to play the first 2 games at home, and it's been really, really impressive. So now they forced the game 6. We've heard all of the statistics around how rare that is, and the Miami Heat should be a little worried. What are your thoughts?
Said this was a different Celtics team than we've seen as of late in this playoff series. I think this is what Boston fans were asking for. Where was this team? Where was that fight? Where was that dog? And like you said, I mean, they got it going from the beginning. Marcus Smart getting the steal from Bam Adebayo. I mean, I couldn't stop watching. And like you, Zena, 99.9% of the country, I think, was ready to throw this series away. Like, get Boston off my TV, off my television. And all of a sudden, we see new life, a resurgence. Derek White making people take notice, you know, of this Boston Celtics team. And they're playing great team basketball, folks knowing their role. Jason Tatum doesn't have to be the top scorer for this team. Other guys stepping up. And, you know, anytime you get 4 players in double figures in the first half, and you're getting turnovers, right? 10 turnovers in the first half that they were able to capitalize off of. I think this Boston team is really playing. I mean, they're playing do or die basketball. They're not ready to go home. All right. They want to do all the, you know, they want to keep this series. They want to bring it back. And I think it's just been, this is the Boston team that we thought we would get in this series that has finally arrived, finally shown up. They were late to the party, you know, but they're here. So overall, I think this is the Boston team that we thought that could potentially beat this Heat team. And now we're thinking, Zena, that they could potentially do the impossible and maybe be that team to come back from a 3-0 deficit.
1,000%. And you made a really great point about Jason Tatum not needing to be the offensive powerhouse he typically needs to be in order for the Celtics team to find victory. He had 11 assists last night, and we saw, there's that one beautiful drive in the middle, the hook pass out to Marcus Smart to start off the just rain of threes. I absolutely adored, again, just how they showed up. A lot of people have been talking about the identity crisis that they've had, and it seemed like yesterday they looked themselves in the mirror and they talked to themselves and said, no, this is who we are. Now, there were some people that had some conversations and found a newfound three-point identity. Mr. Derek Wright, 6 of 8 threes. Now, I don't think that the Celtics can count on that being a steady thing going into Miami. Being able to find the amount of threes that they had out of Marcus Smart and Derek White, probably not something they can count on to win the game, but that distribution, that ball distribution, that effective defense. These last 2 games, 54 points combined off of turnovers from the Miami Heat. This is now the Miami Heat that needs to look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? But I personally think if the Miami Heat allow them to come into Boston and get a win, this Game 7 is probably going to go to Boston. And it's because of what Jaylen Brown said. Don't let us get another one. Because now all the momentum is our way. And I love the word they use, resurgence. They have resurged their energy and their confidence in themselves.
That's why I loved all of those sound bites. This is a different confident sounding Boston team, and I think, again, like you said, I think they're realizing, like, it's only us. It's only us. We're our biggest enemy. And, to quote one of my favorite lines from a movie, it's going to be trouble, trouble, trouble if this series goes back to Boston. And it's just true. It's just true. And that's why Miami literally has one job. They have one job. They have to win in Miami. But if Boston plays like this, and I think you said it best, they can't rely on the 3-ball. When the 3-ball hits, it's good. It's amazing. And obviously that really helped Boston. But you're also looking at a Boston team that really only made 7 more threes than Miami. But percentage-wise, Miami wasn't horrible from the 3. But also, I think, the biggest factor, too, if Miami can get healthy, and I'm talking about Gabe Vincent, he can be a difference maker, right? Averaging about 13.1 points in this game. You also look at the Celtics team. I'm a bit worried about Malcolm Brogdon. So honestly, the health, I think, too, of both of these teams are going to matter. Miami already limped into this spot. You look at who they're missing, but still being able to be here. But, Miami, again, they've already defied the odds. We're starting to believe in an 8 seed. Folks, give everyone a chance because Miami has proved, when you play team basketball. And remember, too, this Miami team suffered as well because Jimmy Butler wasn't able to score like he's usually able to score, right? This is his lowest scoring game in the playoff series. Bam Adebayo having difficulty. Boston switching up on him. Right? Having different defenders, he's not able to get the shots that he wanted. I talked about Gabe, he's that 3rd leading scorer. So I think Miami, and I trust Eric Spoelstra, but they have to just go back to being the Miami team that got here. Jimmy Butler has to get back taking control of this team. We need playoff Jimmy, or whatever Jimmy Butler wants to call himself, if they really want to call game. Because I heard Jimmy Butler was eating popcorn after the game, but I hope he eats popcorn after the game and not home watching the games if Miami drops this next one, Zena. Again, I'm worried about Miami because Boston's going in with a new confidence. And obviously they see how they could beat this Miami Heat team. And then you don't want everybody to get the hot. Al Horford was looking confident. Zena, it seemed like this Boston team, everybody was able, as we say in DC, everybody eats. Everybody was eating on this Boston team. And this is the Boston team that's so strong together. So all in all, I think this is the Eastern Conference Finals that we wanted. I know Denver's on the couch come on, we're ready. But also, let's also talk about, Denver, Zena. This Denver team now getting some nice rest as they watch these two duke it out. So I think that's the other factor.
They're watching all of this go down. And I know that teams are always going to say, and I talked to Natalie about this, you saw this as well, teams are always going to say, I respect both teams. We're preparing equally for both teams. But Denver did perform better against the Heat in the regular season. So I imagine that that's probably the team that they want to match up against. Joker definitely feeling like he has probably the advantage over Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo, obviously a really great defender, but Joker is just so crafty around the rim. So I imagine that that's probably the matchup that they want. But they're preparing for both. And that is incredibly difficult because imagine you're looking at your schemes, your offensive schemes of where should we, from a defensive perspective, focus on. Miami Heat are really good at transition defense. So are you practicing for trying to beat that transition defense, or are you practicing for being more in the half court with the Boston Celtics team that likes to defend in the half court. It's just like there's different ways and different paths you can take to consider both ways, and they do have time. They do have time. But you always want to figure out exactly who that is that you're going to be matching up against, because that allows you to have a more focused game plan going into your very first game. And Denver wants it. I mean, they want it bad. And I think Jimmy Butler feels confident that he's going to get that next win. I mean, obviously he said we can win the next game. We will win this series. Yeah. So maybe the Denver Nuggets are fingers crossed around that. But I definitely think that there's a lot of excitement around whoever comes out of the East. That is going to give them a lot of momentum, whether it's the Heat fighting back to keep the Celtics off their back, or the Boston Celtics coming off a 3-0 deficit. Whew, Denver Nuggets are going to have a great matchup in the finals.
Yeah. Because let's think about it, Zena. We're also watching a Denver team that has made history, right? Finally getting to the finals, finally breaking that curse. This is now a Denver team that folks truly feel like they can believe in. And now we're finally talking about Denver basketball. But as he says, we look at this Miami Heat team, and this is a Heat team with so many storylines, the undrafted players, Caleb Martin, we talked about Gabe Vincent, again, really watching him, but look at the difference when Kyle Lowry was in that game, and he really wasn't able to contribute, offensively. He had turnovers, contributing to Miami's overall turnovers. So he is a difference maker. I mean, you really want, obviously, this team can't afford to lose anybody else. I mean, you might have to suit up. I mean, it's getting like that for Miami right now. They're trying to get, I'm ready. Like it's right. Almost to that point, and Jimmy can only do so much. He is great. But you talk about Denver, you have Nikola Jokic, triple-double king, obviously came close to the MVP this year. He can play great basketball. Jamal Murray playing some of the best basketball right now of his career. And let's remember, Jamal Murray is playing for the respect that he's asked all of us to finally give him. He's saying, see me. I am a big reason why. Aaron Gordon, KCP. I mean, that Denver team, they have a lot of guys, Michael Porter. I mean, you have a lot of guys that you have to account for. And as you said, I mean, I think Boston would probably be the better matchup, but Miami is playing so well that truly anything can happen. So all in all, we're going to get a good finals this year, Zena. I think fans are going to be just excited to watch whatever matchup.
I agree. And, you mentioned Jamal Murray. Personally, for me, coming out of the West, I think he was my MVP. I think the way that he showed up after everything that everyone said about his ability to score the ball and his ability to show up and be on both defensively and offensively the teammate for his team, Joker did what he was supposed to do. Joker played within the lines of who Joker is, and he showed up. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting that at all. But Jamal Murray, one of the biggest storylines on that Denver team, he showed up on both ends. That play at the very end of the Lakers series came down to his ability to stop the ball when LeBron James was going in to tie the game. And it was such a clean defensive play. And I love the fact that it came after Mike Malone saying, we can't do specialists in the playoffs, right? You can't do specialists in this game. And he showed like, hey, I can score the ball, but I can also make the key defensive plays that you need. And so for me, just like you said, put some respect on Jamal Murray's name. I think it's going to be a absolute battle between Jimmy Butler and Jamal Murray on both ends of the floor, trying to show people who really is the playoff J between the two of them. I'm very, very excited to see this matchup. Not only from an offensive perspective and who's going to put up buckets, because Jimmy Butler is going to do what he's going to do. Last night was an aberration. Let's not count on that to happen again. I think that there is going to be a lot of exchanging buckets, and it's going to be more so who can get stops between the two of them. So I can't wait to see this matchup. And for me, like I said, Jamal Murray, he's my MVP coming out the West. He did what he was supposed to do to get his team.
Hey, leading scorer when you look at that Denver team, but I think, there's a conversation too that goes from this, and Dean, I want to ask you this, is this enough? Let's say win or lose. Is this enough for us to finally be talking more about Denver Nuggets basketball with what we've seen from this team thus far? Because there's a question conversation that we don't talk about Denver enough, even though Denver plays good basketball, they play well. You talk about Nikola Jokic, and I always say Nikola Jokic, his standard is greatness. Like you said, we know what we're going to get from him. Yeah. He's healthy. He's going to do whatever he can to put his back on his team. But this team, this identity, is this enough for us basketball pundits, to finally start talking about Denver as a true contender each year to potentially come out the West?
1,000%. I think that you can see this being, and Natalie mentioned this before at our last show together, this is exactly what the Warriors experienced when they were making their rise to the dynasty that they are now. And I think there is something that the Denver Nuggets still have to prove. They do need to come out of the West, not only with a sweep, that's huge, right? That definitely adds to the conversation, to the respect that they deserve. But I definitely think that there needs to be a definitive win too. They need to show up in the finals as well. What's exciting about this Denver team is that their core pieces aren't going anywhere. Right? You just listed off how talented and how stacked and how deep this team is. And that's usually the thing that allows you to continue talking about them, is that they're going to continue to show up and have those core pieces performing the way that they're performing and showing up each and every night. I mean, you can even add Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to that list as well for his contributions. I think that, yes, Denver has earned a lot more respect. And I think Jokic particularly has earned a lot more respect with the way that he's come and shown up in these playoffs. But I think they still need to get significant wins going into this finals and not let it be what we've seen previously, getting to these big stages and not performing. So they've earned some respect. We're going to be talking about them for a long time, and we're going to be talking about them more, but still a little bit more work to do. I'm going to just say that.
Proven. Completely agree with you, Zena. All right, well, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, right here on Brother from Another, presented by Peacock.
Welcome back. Jackie Young showed up and showed out, reminded people why she was the #1 draft pick. Las Vegas, this was a very tense game because of the background storyline. But Jackie Young said, never mind all that. Let me do what I need to do to make sure I can elevate the Aces over the Sparks. They go 2-0 now without their coach, Becky Hammon. And she is coming back on Saturday for her first game. It's going to be ring night in Vegas. But before we get into that, let's introduce our guest, Dawn Montgomery. Thank you for joining us on Ladies First Fridays. Always excited to have a WNBA analyst in the house.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
For sure. So, Dawn, let's just go ahead and get into this Sparks Aces game. There was tons of discussion around this game because of the situation between Dearica Hamby and the Las Vegas Aces, namely Becky Hammon. It was interesting because this is the first of 2 matchups in the next 3 days between the 2 teams. And Becky Hammon was not coaching, but she will be back on Saturday. Now, interestingly enough, Nneka Ogwumike was sick and did not play the game. And so Dearica Hamby started in her place. And she played phenomenally, but the Aces came out on top. Watching that game, what do you think of it?
I enjoyed it, actually. I mean, I know that everything that's happening behind the scenes is very negative, and we need to get to the bottom of that so that we can move on and enjoy this season. But I think it's very promising when you see certain star players not necessarily be ready to step up or perform, but you start seeing the younger players like really take over. And I think that just proves to like the fans that are watching, like there's more than one person to watch in this league. There's more than one storyline that's happening in this league. In the midst of turmoil, I mean, look at the NFL. There's always something going on in the NFL every single day. And people still are watching. So we still need people to support in some form of fashion as we get to the bottom of what happened there.
For sure. And I think, too, when you mentioned the younger players, stepping up, Jackie Young has always been a really formidable player, particularly for the Aces, but she hasn't been the star. And dropping 30 points when you've got Asia Wilson, Candace Parker, Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray, you name it, all around you. She really shined yesterday. And kind of thinking about this whole WNBA vets versus rookies conversation, we're gonna have to wrap that up. She showed she's a vet now. The way that she came out, she showed she was a vet.
Right, and I keep telling people, like, even for some of the players that we may not see active, consistently, where they're coming off of the bench, I love me a bench player that's gonna show up and just drop 30 at the drop of like a game, like literally like, okay, I'm here, And I think that we need that type of energy through this particular league, just because, like, that's one of the things that most people are crying out and saying, well, they're not so competitive, or they don't do this, they don't do that. Oh, no, baby. We've got players that are willing to step up and give you a show if you're willing to watch it.
If you're willing to watch it. Yeah, because I think there was so much anticipation, right, leading up to that game. And I think, Zena, you hit that right on the head. And let's remember this 27th season of the WNBA, something we were all excited about were these super teams, the Las Vegas Aces being one. Zena, you named off all those stars, but being able to live up to the expectation. Coaches gone 2 games, obviously probably some bad blood in the locker room, about to get those rings. And, New York, I think they still have some stuff to prove, obviously still having to build that chemistry, but Las Vegas has us excited. There's a reason why this team has that beautiful new practice facility, by the way. Shout out to Las Vegas for also setting the standard. And I feel like, to your point, Dawn, this team is really starting to show what the WNBA can be. As you said, if people are willing to watch, invest in women's sports, support women's sports, and watch these collegiate stars that are now coming in to this league and this game, and hopefully potentially future have some expansion.
Right. And I think that that's kind of why Front Office Sports shouts out to the writers, AJ Perez and Andrew Cohen, who wrote that piece on talking to certain sources throughout the league and outside of the league who didn't want to be named, but they told the truth. Like, they literally were very honest in saying, like, there are some teams that are willing to invest in or ownership that's willing to invest in their teams and show the future of this league. But I think the biggest thing about this is in the midst of, while going through this process and seeing that Vegas seems to be, our standard right now, we're gonna have some issues. It's just like every relationship. Everything is not always hunky-dory. Everything's not always great and coasting. There's always going to be something. But what that shows you is as you grow, you have to improve. So the league has to make some changes in order to really be players first and make sure that our players feel safe and, comfortable in playing this game.
And that's the difficult balance, right? Is wanting the league to make the changes that it needs to make, but also having the owners giving that freedom to be able to make those changes, right? Between Brooklyn, Brooklyn Sports Entertainment, Joe Tsai, and what he's trying to do with the New York Liberty and his team, as well as the Las Vegas Aces, you're seeing investors or owners that want to invest in their teams, but because of parity and making sure that everything is equitable, sometimes their hands are a little bit tied behind their backs. And so just making sure that the league provides a space in which they can do that is also really important.
And then to just make sure that they're listening to Black women, because if we're going to be 100, I've said this consistently about this league, where we have a lot of people that don't look like us in these front offices in this particular league as well, and on ownership or are able to make these decisions, we really need them to listen to us. Like, we're the ones out there playing the sport. We're the fans who are putting money into the sport. We're the media members who are pushing, certain narratives, as well as like making things go viral on our timelines every single day that helps this league get more visibility. You need to listen to us. Right. And that possibly would also mean that they need to start hiring some of us in some of these spaces, or bringing us to the table to where they can hear some solution-based things that they can kind of create and do in the meantime, while trying to figure out something more long-term that benefits the future of this league.
That's something that most people don't know about the fan base. It's so great. A lot of people don't realize that most of the fan base for the WNBA, particularly up until recently, are older and white. And when I say older, I mean significantly older. These are retirees that are enjoying spending their extra income on season tickets. And there needs to be a shift. And you're seeing WNBA teams try to have those cultural nights and having those community-oriented nights, trying to get groups out and things of that sort. But I agree with you. Having people that are of the culture and also of the demographic of the teams be the ones being the ones with the megaphone to say what we need to work on, I think is really, really important. I want to make sure we get into the games too, because this season has been a lot of excitement, and between the super teams, but then people showing that they should have been also named super teams, right? Some of the teams that weren't left off the list showed up and have played incredibly well. What were your big surprises in terms of performance in the first week of the WNBA?
I'm going to be honest. I think I don't really have any big surprises. So I'm just going to, and that's just because I watched this. I'm a fan. I'm here for it. I think that's the type of energy that we need to have when we are having these conversations of who's on this list, who's not on this list, because I think that's going to drive the competition. I think that's going to encourage fan bases to really, kind of go at it, on the hashtag WNBA Twitter, because I don't know if y'all seen how ignorant and insane they can be, but they can really go at it. But we need the sport itself to have that type of energy competitively on the court while we're trying to grow it. You get what I'm saying? It's 27 years in this thing. We should be talking about how it should be doing expansion or how it should be growing in a certain light. It should have been doing this maybe 10 years ago. Like I needed to catch up. So I think that's where I'm at, where it's like, I want us to make sure that, the people who do feel slighted, yes, ball out, show out, do what you do. And I think that's going to encourage other sports fans who are looking for something once the NBA Finals is done, once, training is going into effect for the NFL teams and things like that. They're going to be looking for something to watch. The WNBA is here.
Right. What are your thoughts on this conversation around the growth of the league and having these new players that do have big fan bases that are trying to follow them into the WNBA, coming from college, going into the league, and then not making the team? Of course, this whole Alexis Morris situation was interesting because it did create a conversation, right? She has now since apologized. Alexis, we love you. We got you. We understand that you want a spot, but you have to work for it. I'm curious what your thoughts are on roster expansion versus team expansion, and just how do you allow the team to grow, the league to grow, when you're talking about this veterans, rookies, and no spots available?
Well, we need both. We need the roster expansion and team expansion. That just has to happen. They need to figure that out this season. We need to know that they're going to move forward and that we're not going to have to deal with these type of, one-off conversations on the side with this. I feel like, someone for Alexis herself coming into the league, baby, you can't come in and be ready to kind of go off on everybody and you ain't earned your spot yet. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of I hate to be that auntie where it's like, baby girl, pause. but it's also another thing that I consistently talk about across all sports league, where rookies, newer players, or collegiate players coming into that want to go professional, they need to have media training. Baby, you need to know that there are certain things that you don't need to push the button on quite yet until you are well versed on what's happening in the league and how business goes every single day. You would be surprised. I think there was a Major League Baseball player just recently who went viral for a thread where he talked about how he was a top draft pick in the MLB, and then how everything just flipped on him within 48 hours. It was business. It was this. You got to meet veterans. You got to do this. You got to do that. And to me, that's one of those things where it's okay, who are the players who are really reaching out and talking to these young women and really inviting them into the locker room and saying, hey, this is how things goes, not from a standpoint of we're not going to change, the culture around here, or we're not going to adjust for you, but in a sense of this is how we're going to try to incorporate you, and you need to be open to being a part of that, because you also have to remember she's coming from a different type of culture where they just built what they built, became national champions. You get what I'm saying? And they did things their way. Baby, that's not how that works in this league. And most teams aren't going to be open to that. So if we're just going to be honest, we need the roster expansion. We need the team expansion. And I think we need sisterhood expansion is what I'm going to call it, because I really need them to reach out to these young girls and say, hey, I know you might be coming for my spot, and I can appreciate the competition, but I want to make sure that you understand your place. And it's not from a bullying type of standpoint, or I'm bigger than you, I've been here longer than you. It's more so I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to show you how this goes. And if it doesn't work out, then it's okay. We can go from there. And that's just how I feel about it.
Well, sisterhood is exactly right in terms of what this league needs, especially for growth and expansion. And sisterhood is exactly why we have Ladies First Fridays. Dawn, thank you for coming and educating us.
Thanks for
Can I give a
joining
quick
us,
shout out,
Dawn.
please? Can I do a quick shout out?
Yeah.
Shout out to my son who's graduating on Sunday. My son is graduating from high school, and I'm so proud of him. He's going into the Air Force, so I just want to give a shout out to Sean B. Thanks, ladies.
That's perfect.
We love to
for
see
Memorial
it.
Day.
So special.
We love to see it. Congratulations to him.
Have fun with that. Thanks, Dawn.
Will there ever be a time in our lives where the hand check comes back? Is that going? Is this kind of the wave in which we're going now?
There was a point, I believe, probably in around the late 90s when the game became too physical. And I think we lost some of
For our viewers, you mean?
Yeah, and I think for our fans, from the aesthetic enjoyment of the game, where it de-emphasized the particular skill a player had and maybe weighted too heavily physicality, where a big, strong player could come in and prevent a incredibly skilled player from doing those kinds of things. I think of, not that he's a small guy, but a smaller player like Steph Curry can do on the floor. I think that when you think of some of his ability to shoot, his ability to move through the paint, that if guys could just bang him and knock him to the ground, as that was once the case in the league, I don't think that would be a better brand of basketball.
Talking about the aesthetics of the game. Kelsey, what do you think? Do you think the physicality of the game is now gone as a result of the hand-checking rule coming into play back in the 2000s?
I love Kevin Garnett as an interviewer. His facial expressions, like he was really testing with those responses. I absolutely enjoyed that video. But going back to your question, it's funny. I just had a Georgetown capstone student do a whole project on this, Zena, and he was talking about how the game has actually become faster. But what I want to touch on, and I interview a lot of former players on my podcast show, Listening with Kanan. All of them, Zena, complain. The game's not as physical now. They've made it an offensive basketball game. But you look at the growth of the NBA. He mentioned a guy like Steph Curry, and think about how Steph Curry himself has changed the game, has changed three-point shooting, has really made it a shoot league. And if the Warriors were able to do that, I guess they would still be here. We would be talking to them. No shade to Golden State fans. But all that to say, I think it's who you ask. It was no shade, I promise. But I think it's who you ask. For me, the hand checking, like I loved old school physical basketball. Like give it to me, not just under the basket. I want it all around. But I know it's a thing to protect the players. And I know they're doing a lot of different rule changes. I know we're going to talk about flopping. But for me, and you think about it, that's why every time we do these lists, what happens? Oh, well, it's because it's an era thing. And before you could be more physical, where now everything's a foul. So all that to say, I think a guy like Kevin Garnett would obviously come from the point of wanting to be like, hey, I don't like that. But I think guys now, especially because we're so offensive oriented, I can see why they would support the rule change that happened and obviously want to keep that rule change. But for me, give me back physical basketball. Like, it's funny. We just had The Last Dance play again on TV. And why do we love that? Because we love seeing Jordan go at it with these greats, these guys who made Michael Jordan work for everything, every single basket. I do think that's a different brand and breed of basketball. And honestly, Zena, I think fans would embrace that. Like now, I hate seeing a guy go to the basket so easily. This is the top of the top basketball. I'm watching the NBA because I want to see the best. I want to see an elbow in your back. I want to see you compete for everything. And I think, now, unfortunately, I think the way fouls are called too have just unfortunately hurt our game. But curious your thoughts as well, Zena. But I'm glad KG brought this topic up because it's definitely a hot one.
I'm the same. I am really happy that he brought this up, mostly because as a person that hasn't always watched the NBA, in my family, it wasn't a thing growing up in my household. So there was a lot that I still had to learn about it. So every time I see something like this from a historical trend or a perspective, I always go look it up. I want to go find out where did this come from, et cetera. So there's a lot of theories as to why the hand check rule became a thing. The one that I found most interesting, and you mentioned Jordan just now, is the one in which the league knew that their ratings would potentially go down. And this is a theory, y'all. don't call the league and tell them I said this, but the ratings could potentially go down if once Jordan retired, right? So he retired, then he came back, and then he retired again around the 2003, 2004 time. And they were like, what are we going to do? We're not going to have another prolific scorer like this on the perimeter. All of our scoring and our big men that are our big men, right? And then you look at who was winning MVPs during that time. It was our big men. So they needed to find a way to allow league perimeter players, I was gonna say peripheral players, but perimeter players to still have the ability to score the ball so that people would still watch. Well, the ratings still dropped right after Jordan retired. However, then, as you mentioned, the game started picking back up, and the perimeter players started being more of those prolific scorers that you saw out of Jordan. And so now you have players like a Jimmy Butler, like a Jamal Murray, like a Steph Curry, that are back to what the league needed. So it actually helped in the ratings perspective, the ability to score the ball, the entertainment perspective. So when Adam says the aesthetics, I'm like, I get what you mean. Now, if he was part of those conversations, if this theory is true and he was part of those conversations, it worked exactly how he said. But he mentioned in this interview, smart players have figured out a way around, right? So this is what we're talking about with flopping. They changed the rule around, non-basketball moves. I think they've got to handle flopping the same way that they handled this hand check issue. This has become a workaround, right? Where players are aware that the more they flop, the more they sell the theatrics, the more they become European football, the more they become Oscar award-winning basketball players, that the refs will blow the whistle their way. And it's been a thing that they've been talking about. I'm so excited for Summer League because they are going to test some rules around this. So I'm very pumped to see what this is going to look like this summer in July.
I mean, let's be honest. If you're on NBA Twitter, flopping is always coming up. It's come up in these playoffs. Yeah. And some would say, it's been a difference maker. Now, those NBA players that flop, me and Zena right now, we're looking at you. We're not going to say any names. But you know who you are. And I think this will be something, that fans are looking for to make the game better. Like, if you get fouled, you get fouled. But, when you do the extra, like you said, I'm not watching the Oscars. I'm watching basketball for a reason. Right. If I want to see you do that, go to a movie, especially now if you're in the off season. But all that to say, I do think this is going to help the game, help the brand. And I think this is why the NBA continues to lead the pack, when it comes to actually responding to the needs of the fans. Like this, again, is something, if you go on social media, people will probably have a top 5 for flopping and which NBA players do it the most. Now, I get it can benefit them, but it goes back to just wanting to play the game that we love. So again, just stop the flop. I'm excited like you to see Summer League, and hopefully this is something that we can move forward with. Just had to put that out there, my own PSA. And Zena, talking about the rule changes and just newness in the NBA. Finally, folks here in my neck of the woods, the nation's capital, we have something to be excited about. At least I'm excited about. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to change Washington Wizards basketball. Like, calm down. We know what we got. We know what we got. You know what you have. But we have a new face in town. And I think this is something, Wizards fans were excited about. The NBA draft lottery didn't quite go the way, 8 wasn't what we really wanted, but we've got a brand new hire that shows Michael Winger, president now, Monumental Basketball, helping to reshape this team. Finally, it's like we have a new breath of air. He's someone that has the experience. You're getting somebody from the Los Angeles Clippers organization, obviously an organization that has done well in the past. He's had stops with the Cavaliers. I mean, this man knows his basketball, Zena. And I think this is what Wizards fans are saying. We need somebody to come in and make this team back to being a competitor in the East. There's no way the Wizards should have been tied for the 8th, worst record in the league this year. You paid Bradley Beal. You give him, you had Kyle Kuz, had Kristaps Porzingis. And, then you look at the draft, Johnny Davis has been a project, but all that to say, I think Wizards fans are saying, finally, hey, someone that knows the game, potentially someone we can trust. But I thought it was interesting. The conversation has really been, why would he leave the Clippers? And the Clippers, though, I think they have a lot of conversations to have. You look at You look at Kawhi, you look at Paul George, look at the contract situations and the makeup of that team. Shout out to the Clippers too for getting that brand new stadium in Inglewood. Had a chance to see that, in the rebuild stage. But all that to say, I think coming to DC, and I know DC is not maybe the top media market, but he's going to have power. And this is power over that. Remember, DC has a Mystics. Shout out to going back to our WNBA conversation. The Mystics team has power over, and of course our G League team, the Go-Go. So all that to say, I just think finally, DC, it's something to smile about, something to raise your chin up high, and say, we want to be back competitive. But just curious your thoughts on this new hire. And if you feel like he made the right move to hopefully help this Wizards team that would like to be in the P-word playoffs hopefully next season.
the P-word playoffs, always very key. No, I love this move for you all. The Wizards definitely needed some help in terms of what to do with their roster. What I love about Michael Ringer as a option for you all is that, not option, he's the decision now, but he is a guy that knows the CBA really well. He knows caps, he knows contracts, he knows negotiations. He can do all of the background roster construction that you all need, and he's going to be smart enough to hire a basketball-minded person. When you think about the teams that were able to get some big names to play well together, I'm thinking Bob Myers. That's a whole nother conversation that's happening on the West Coast from a GM perspective. He was someone that was able to get big-time players to play well together money-wise, particularly, and on the court. And so it's really cool that you all are going to get someone that knows that really well, that has free reign to do whatever he wants. He literally can put in a plan. I think that's what I read. He could put in a 5-year plan.
Like, they gave him the key to the car and just said, drive off, like, do you, which is huge.
Very big, very big. It's very rare that happens, but DC's having some good fun and going to have a lot of good decisions to make. I'm thinking about Kyle Kuzma, who's going to have, there's going to be some decisions around him. But Kyle Kuzma, for some reason, questions around him for sure. But Kyle Kuzma, for some reason, makes me think, after that conversation with Spencer Dinwiddie over the summer and the back and forths and like all the above, it makes me think of Jamal Murray's recent list of top 5. Because there's talking about players that impact their teams, and that's what the whole conversation was about. Like, Spencer, what are you really doing for the Brooklyn Nets? You walked in, didn't do too much. And it makes me think of what Jamal Murray was talking about, because when I look at the list that Jamal Murray put together, I'm thinking about players that were either on their team or and impacted their teams all that way, or joined a new team and immediately impacted them, bringing them to the playoffs. So let's hear what he had to say about his top 5.
All-time NBA players, who would you have in your list?
All-time NBA, MJ, Kobe, Steph, Shaq, and then like between like LeBron and, yeah, probably LeBron.
List I might have seen as of yet, and I know, Zena, people are going to try to say, no, why does he have this again? It goes back to the generational thing. But obviously, no one should have any quarrel with Michael Jordan. He's MJ. Kobe Bryant, may he rest in peace. We know what he did for the basketball game. Steph Curry, we already talked about him and his greatness, and the greatness that we'll continue to get from Steph Curry is even more exciting, I think, for basketball fans. Shaq and what he did, for big men in the NBA. And obviously, we love what he's doing as a broadcast talent, too. And then LeBron James is a no-brainer. I mean, he's been giving it to us. And I'm here to say I think LeBron is going to continue to give us greatness. I don't think he's retiring yet, Zena, but I like the conversation. I like him making us talk about him. But I think Jamal had it right.
I do too. And I think, like I just mentioned, like what Kyle Kuzma was saying, are you going to a team and immediately impacting them? You look at this list. Yes. You throw them on any roster, you put them around anyone, or you change out the roster around them, and they're still going to make a significant impact. To me, this list is correct. Yes, I might be a younger NBA fan. I'm sure there's some people that could say a Kareem. I know our producer, Gary, had some words.
Kareem Abdul, right? Yeah.
Kareem Abdul, of course, right? But to me, I want size. So I'm definitely going to go Shaquille over a Kareem. I also think there's going to be some people that are like, well, look at the MVPs, right? What about a Giannis? What about, to me, you can put whoever around these five right here, and they will do really great things. So, I'm with you, Jamal. I'm with you. We're on the same page. Good top 5.
We stand with you, Jamal Murray. We stand with you. You've got two sisters supporting that strong list. And talking about people who need support, let's switch over to the football world because someone who's going to need some support of his team, Jimmy G, all of a sudden, Zena, surgery. What? Again? Jimmy, we need to put you in plastic wrap, bubble wrap. Like, what more needs to be done? We're trying to get you back healthy. Last season, you got us excited. You've had the surgery already on the ACL. I mean, literally, the doctors probably know him when he comes in. So all that to say, it's like Raiders fans, and this is a Raiders team, let's be honest. They can only go up. Jimmy G is getting paid too, folks. They paid him in free agency. He's just not walking around. But this is a team that finished third in the AFC West. You got problems now with your wide receivers being like, hey, I don't even know who's going to be here, to start quarterback. So all that to say, Jimmy G, we need him to be more than the pretty boy. We need him to just stay on the football field. Your team needs you. The Raiders need you. And he's great when he's great, but you got to keep yourself protected. Your thoughts, Zena, your thoughts.
I just feel so bad. I do feel bad because, Jimmy G is a really great quarterback and he just has had the most unfortunate luck when it comes to injuries. But I also feel bad for the Oakland fans. You lose your football team. They move across to Nevada. Then you spend a significant amount of money on apparently a quarterback that you knew before you signed. During his physical, you found out that he was not all the way healthy, and you spent that money anyways. And I can imagine as a Raiders fan, not me, but if I was a Raiders fan, how devastating that must be of just how much did you care? Because we could have saved that money to spend in free agency for a better quarterback or could have drafted better for a better quarterback. And so I know Raiders fans are going through it. Oakland fans are going through it because they're also, we're talking about the NFL, but their baseball team's going too. Oakland A's are about to leave as well. And so I just feel bad for them right now. I hope they feel better soon. Jimmy G, obviously, this is nothing against you. You can't help that. But the front office, they're going to have some questions to answer from the fans because you knew.
Well, here we are once again. Well, really quickly before we wrap, other big football news that broke today. DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver, free agent after getting released from the Arizona Cardinals. And, my phone blew up. Folks in Baltimore, it was like, hey, Dallas Cowboys fans, it's like the sweepstakes lottery has begun. We know how great he is. I know he had suspension, but when he first got to Arizona, obviously a great and talented player. And this is a man that, let's be honest, this is a receivers league right now with all these hot quarterbacks coming in the league and the quarterbacks that we have now. So now the question is, where will his landing place be? But he has a hefty price tag as well, Zena. So it'll be very interesting. But any teams that you like best that you'd like to see him land? These are the teams that he said he'd love to land. The quarterbacks that he would love to play with, I think, to get him staying on that top level. Any favorite team for you, Zena?
I don't want to say this, but I do think he would be really great in Kansas. I'm looking at Lamar Jackson and with Baltimore. He just got Nelson Aguilar, right? And now he has OBJ. I'm just thinking, where is DeAndre Hopkins going to come in and immediately make some impact? Philadelphia's pretty stacked too. So I'm thinking, Kansas City could get some help as well from the wide receiver position. He can go wherever he wants, depending on who's willing to pay that price tag. But it's an exciting day for anyone that's looking for some offensive power. Shout out to DeAndre Hopkins. We will be right back. Brother, some other continues.
Do you realize that you are a feminist hero in America? Heroine?
Your wife just told me that.
No, do you realize that?
I'm beginning to. You see, it wasn't something that I planned. I kind of see it as a gift because of the life I lived. It had a meaning. And I think that the meaning was all of what is happening now. I think that if I had not given the story to the world, maybe my life would not be as it is. I believe.
I absolutely love that quote from Tina because, of course, everything she was talking about happening now was the release of her movie. Angela Bassett did a phenomenal job in her biopic, and it was about everyone learning about the abuse that she suffered under Ike Turner. And you can see this was mid to late 90s. The word feminist was still uncomfortable for some, right? And you can see her kind of be like, I don't know. I wasn't trying to become, that wasn't what I wanted to be. But when women go through something and come out victorious on the other side, particularly Black women, it seems to be the time when they gain the respect. It's not, you can't have a silver spoon in this world and people want to hear your story. You have to have some sort of a struggle. And for me, Tina Turner represented, it's never too late. I had my struggle, I came back, and I don't have to be that struggle. That could be a part of my journey, but it doesn't have to be the end. And I'm grateful that we got to experience her. I'm grateful that women got to see what it meant to still be the baddest at 50 years old, right? When she had her comeback. I'm so sad that she's gone, but I'm happy she's resting now. And she did so much while she was here.
In paradise. And it was so amazing, to see the tributes that poured into her. The Obama saying, she's a star whose light will never dim. And as you said, I think, so often so many people go through things in life that you'll never know, the struggles and the journey. But when she released the biopic, the movie, really letting us into her life. And I can't tell you well enough how hard it is to be vulnerable. I think so many people gained a strength saying, I can get up this next day. I still can go through. That willpower that Tina Turner taught us to have. The way that she sang, you could feel her emotion. I mean, I think every little probably Black girl especially had dressed up one time as Tina Turner. Like, you wanted to be her, the legs, the arms, the confidence that she always exhibited. I think she represented just so much. And I think like so many people, I was so sad. She's somebody that I wish so many of us probably wish we could have touched. But the legacy, and you talked about what her life, has left, the legacy that she has left has inspired not just those in music, not just those in rock and roll, and think about what rock and roll has been through to have a queen like her, the queen of rock and roll, inducted. But it just shows that all of us, again, can really get through and empower anything. It starts with belief in you. It starts with the belief that you can get up each day and that you can get out of bad situations, that brighter days are ahead. And I'm just glad to see that, at her older age, she was living a wonderful, beautiful life overseas. And like you said, looking amazing, showing us all still love. In the best way. So rest in peace, Tina Turner. We will always miss you. You'll forever be loved. And just thoughts and prayers to your entire family, Zena.
Always. And it's interesting that concept of comeback. Of course, we started the show with the Celtics. That concept of resilience, her comeback, everything still resonates throughout music, sports, your personal life, like journey and story. So agreed with you on all those points. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Today was so much fun. We talked we talked NBA. We got to pay homage to our queen. Football too. Yes. We never talk football. We're going to talk more football. Zena. I'm very excited to continue those conversations. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Brother from Another, Ladies First Fridays. Memorial Day is on Monday. Thank you to all who serve and protect us. We will be celebrating you and those who have fallen on Monday. There will be no show, but join Brothers from Another on Tuesday. That's when they will be back. Thank you so much for joining us. Kelsey, any last words before the weekend?
We appreciate you all. Enjoy the Memorial Day weekend. Hop in the pool, grill some good food. And me and Zena hope to see you guys on another Ladies First Fridays. Bye, guys. Be back on Tuesday.
Bye, guys.
Appreciate your time. This was fun.
This was so much fun.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.